instructional videos that I'm going to be doing with your calculus class, and it's going to be on the product rule. So let's start with the definition of the product rule. I'm not going to do the verbal definition because we went over it a lot in class already, so I'm just going to state it. The derivative, hold on, the derivative we'll call d dx of the product of two functions, we'll label f of x and g of x, is equal to f of x times g prime of x plus g of x times f prime of x. Okay, so what's that basically is saying is that when you have a function that can be written as, let me just put that here, the product of two functions, in order to find the derivative of that, you need to use this formula, which says it's the derivative of the first function, which is our f of x. It's the first function, which is our f of x, times the derivative of the second function, plus the second function times the derivative of the first function. And we went over that a lot more in detail in class, so I just wanted to give you a little refresher of that. Let's do some examples. We're going to do two examples. So our h of x, which is our function, is going to be written as 3x minus 2x squared times 5 plus 4x. Okay, so this is a function, and it's written as the product of two functions. So my first step is to label my two functions, which are going to be, I'm going to label this one f of x, which is my first function, and label this g of x. Okay, before I even start with the formula, what I like to do on a side is to write the derivatives of f of x. So I know that the derivative of f of x is equal to 3 minus 4x. And you guys have any issues with that, you should talk to me, because right now I'm assuming that we know how to do derivatives and we don't need to redo that. But if you do, come to me and I'll go through that with you. Okay, so now we need to find the derivative of g of x, which is called g prime x. So the function is 5 plus 4x, so I know the derivative just to be 4. Okay, so now that we have that, we could plug in all that we have into this formula. So it's our first function, which I know is 3x minus 2x squared. So 3x minus 2x squared, first function, times the derivative of our second, which is just 4, plus our second function, which is 5 plus 4x, times the derivative of our first, which is just 3 minus 4x. Okay, so a lot of it is just memorizing the formula, and if you could do the derivatives, then you should be fine. So we need to distribute this 4. So we distribute this, and it becomes 12x minus 8x squared. Plus, now we're going to distribute this. So we get 15 minus 20x, so that's the 5, and now we have to distribute the 4. And we get plus 12x, 4 times 4, minus 16x squared. And the reason I do x squared is because it's 4x times 4x, so the x's are getting multiplied by each other, which makes the squared. So now what we have to do is simplify. So I deal with my 12x's. I have 12 minus a 20, which makes it negative 32x, plus a 12. So we have 24 here. I'm going to do 12x plus 12x is 24, minus this 20x. So I'm going to write it as 24x minus 20x. Okay, and I'm just going to do the negative x squareds, the negative x squareds first now. So I have negative 8 minus 16, which comes to negative 24 x squared. Okay, and so then I wrote those out, so I'm going to cross them out so I can just keep it. I've taken care of the 12x's, and I'm going to do the subtraction later. And then I have a 15 left at the end, so we have plus 15. So now I know 24x minus 20 is just 4x minus 24x squared plus 15. And it's nice to simplify it and keep it in right order. So I usually keep it in descending order. So I rewrite it as 24x squared plus 4x plus 15. And this all equals to h prime x. And it's important you should be writing h prime x to where you go. So I'm going to write it as h prime x that way you keep it in proper notation. So it's important to do that. So we have it as h prime x, and this is our function. Okay, so let's just do one more example of that using the formula, just so we have a nice idea of what's going on. Okay, so let's do one more example. I'm going to put it right here for you. Okay, our next function, which I'm going to label as L of x, is going to be x cubed minus 3x parentheses times 2x squared plus 3x plus 5. Okay, so I'm going to label my functions. I know this to be f of x. I know this to be g of x. I'm going to write that f prime x is equal to 3x squared minus 3. G prime x is equal to 4x plus 3. Okay, so we got that, and we're going to plug it into this equation. So we have L prime of x is equal to the first, x cubed minus 3x, times the derivative of the second, which is our g prime of x. So we have 4x plus 3, plus our second function, which is just g of x. So we have 2x squared plus 3x plus 5, times the derivative of our first, which will be 3x squared minus 3. Now, if you notice here, it might not be exactly how the formula is written. I think I actually did do it as the formula is written. But you can play with this because it's just addition, right? So if we switch these, we know that these could be played around with in the formula because it's commutative property. So if I said f prime times g of x, or if I said g of x times f prime of x, it comes out to the same thing because you're multiplying. And then likewise is for there too. But you could even do the steps the same way because the key is that you're just adding them. So it doesn't matter what order you do them. It does, however, matter the order when we get into quotient rule. So it's kind of important if you just follow the rule, but it's not needed for product rule. Okay, so let's just continue this now. So we have L prime x is equal to, I'm going to distribute this. So we have 4x to the fourth plus 3x cubed, and I'm just distributing the x cubed now. I'm going to distribute the negative 3x, minus 12x squared, minus 3 times 3 is minus 9x, okay? Now there's a plus sign, so plus, and I'm going to distribute the 2x squared now. So 2x, 2 times 3 is 6x to the fourth, because, you know, the power is 2 plus 2 makes 4, so 6x to the fourth minus 2x squared times 3, times negative 3, which is negative 6x squared. Okay, and then we have the 3x now, plus 9x cubed minus 9x. And then finally the 5, which is plus 15x squared. Yeah, plus 15x squared minus 15. Now this is a lot of numbers here, so I'm going to check to make sure my math is correct. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. Okay, I made sure that's okay. X to the fourth is fine. I distributed that, so that's good. Okay, negative 12x squared, negative 9x, 2x squared, 6x to the fourth, minus 6x squared, so plus 9x cubed, minus 9x plus 5x squared, 15x squared. Okay, so all the math is correct. So now all this is just simplifying. So let's start with the power of 4. How many powers of 4 are there? So there's 2 powers of 4, a positive 4 and a 6. So I know that makes 10x to the fourth. And I could cross those out. I'm not dealing with these anymore. Okay, now let's look at third, power of 3. Any other power of 3s? Okay, yeah, we have a positive 9x cubed and a positive 3x cubed, which makes 10, 11, 12x cubed. I'm done with x cubed, so I cross them out. Now let's deal with the x squared. We have a negative 12x squared minus 6. So I'm already thinking in my head, I'm already up to negative 18x squared because negative 12 minus 6. But plus a 15 right here. So we have negative 12 minus a 6, which leads us to negative 18x squared, plus this 15, which just brings us down to 15x squared, which is negative 18x squared plus 15x squared, which just gives us 3x squared. And the reason I did that, I subtracted these two, which brought me to negative 18, and I just added the 15x squared. So I'm done with x squareds now, which is good. Now we're seeing that if you x out, you could deal with a lot more numbers. You know, it's good to keep order with this because it's a very important to make sure your algebra is correct. So we have negative 9x minus 9x, which just brings us to negative 18x. Okay, cross them out. Do we have any other whole numbers? I mean, any coefficients? No. So we have just negative 15 left at the bottom. Okay, and that's it. You can't simplify anything else because all the powers are different, and we're just left with L of x is equal to 10x to the fourth plus 12x cubed minus 3x squared minus 18x minus 15. So as you can see, it's really not the rule that's I mean, it is important, but that's hard. It's the algebra. And if you do it this way, which is I think is a useful way of doing it, you can plot it out and simplify it yourself. Okay. So that's all for the product rule. Come back for the next rules. I think I'm going to do a video on quotient rule, and I'll see you in class. Have a good one, guys.